Okay, folks. All right, I did a little part one on this, and uh, it's a little tutorial on the setup, the different things that I do in the part one to set up a character so that I can retopolize it. And like I said, one of the main problems with this is that it had this armpits under here, which are much tighter. So when these go into this armpit, it actually it's very difficult to get the different points in there, and it's actually very confusing. It was very difficult being able to just run some of these loops for edge loops so that the model can deform more correctly or is more evenly spaced and things like that. So what I did was I took the arms and I moved them up, and then I did some smoothing underneath the armpits and bloated it out a little bit. And so just with the arms, what you do is just take this transpose tool and you can move it. But first, what I'll do is hold down the control or command key and then mask out that area. So you want to do it, and actually, it's a little bit easier if you just grab it close to where you're trying to do that. So let's say here, it can be a little tricky, So you just keep trying until you get it right, and you want to have the X on X symmetry when you do this. So that's something that I sometimes forget to do. Even it doesn't matter which direction it goes. Like the gray part is actually showing. So this is the only tricky thing. It's like if you move it after you do that, then it's difficult. And also, it's easier to do it if you res the model down. So this for the polygons, poly painting, you have to have the resolution up high, but it's kind of a problem when you try to mask it out. It's easier to mask something out that is a lower polygon, but then you still want to have a certain amount of stiffness. But anyway, so you say it like this. All right, so that and again, you see how it's flipping over. You got to be careful on how you mask it out. And so let's just say that's good. So normally I would go from up here and make sure it's perfect. So this is the area I want to mask out. And also, if you click on it while holding the control key, it'll smooth or blur the actual mask settings. And then I'll hold down the shift key to snap it into a big solid. So if I'm like this, I hold down the shift key, it'll constrain to one angle, or the closest dead on constraint. So then I'll take this and I'll take the transpose to move, and that's like just basically clicking off the draw and hitting the move. And then when I hit in the center, the outer ring will allow you to adjust it. So you can adjust this around here, maybe put it directly where you want it to be. And then the red, once you hit the red dot, then you can move it. Okay, so you can literally move the arms any way you want. Okay, and change the size. So now she got to do the arms. That's too long. But basically, that's with the move. The rotate tool will give you a better. It won't change the size. So it'll just rotate it in and out of place. Actually, I need to leave it once I get it. That's a good job right there. I would do that, constrain these and move this, because I want to have some space in between it. I don't want it to be exactly like that. Or actually, I was really kind of still not certain. Like I want to make up. I might want it one ring. I might do two jackets for this. I don't know. I might do two different hairstyles, but later. So anyway, I moved it up so I can get underneath the armpits, and so that will make it easier to draw, because I do have these ridges which I just drew in, and I explained how it was just longer there. Okay, so I showed a lot of the reasons. Now I want to tell you about this grid, and why I have this grid and what the whole grid is about. So I'm gonna up the resolution because you can see right here, you can't even see the section in here, and this is fine. So these polygons are stretched. That's why I did it, because this polygons are stretched and these are even because I put in this arbitrary piece and I elongated this section, which is nice. It's fun. You can do it in ZBrush, but it distorts the geometry. So it's not ZBrush fault or anything like that. You know, if I was aware of it, I could have just put more geometry up in front from the get-go. But it's better to do this because then you can design it. So I'm going to up the resolution. It's going to bring part of my model back. So I'm just hitting the Command D, and so you can see where I tried to draw it in, and still, when I was poly painting, it still was still is too much resolution. Okay, and there's a lot of memory. This is a lot of, I don't know how many polygons, but it's pretty big. And on the Mac, I don't know if ZBrush is written for 64-bit, and I may not have the actual memory settings right. But I did up them. I changed the memory settings under here somewhere, here, to kind of help. It still doesn't look like it's right. So I might have put it and then it messed up. So anybody wants to research this and give me a better information about that. But you know, you have your undos and stuff like that, and so I would like to really have the memory up, but we'll see. So anyway, now you can see where I drew this, and I just basically poly painted this. And when you poly paint something, what you want to do is fill it with white, which is what I did already. So I put the color to white and filled it, hit fill object, and it'll fill it with white. Now I don't have the full transparency. Like this is, the RGB is relative to this, so it was down to 50, so I got a half, which is nice. So so you could just fill it, and then that'll be white. So I'm just gonna go back. Okay, so once you fill it, which is what I've already done to get that, then what you want to do is to start drawing this on. Let me grab my pen. And so the first thing you have to have on here is polypaint, colorize, and polypaint. So once you have that, then you can have this set to whatever color you need, and then you might want to reduce it down. And I suggest, if you have a symmetrical model, just go ahead and have put X symmetry on it. And so you can begin to poly paint and to draw in like edges or what have you. And there's probably better settings for this. But let's say if I wanted to extract this or anything like that. So that's just basically showing how I did these. So you can see how you can poly paint and put those on. Now, so when you're doing the grid, is the reason why I do the grid is because, like I say, all this information is so conjunctive that it's hard to see exactly what it is. And so it helps me to plot and plan all of where I'm going to go with this. And it helps a great deal so that when I come and let's say even this, let's say if this was too much, I could go, let's say, turn this white, and then I could say, okay, well, I didn't want that here, and this line needs to be up more there. You know, I could switch the B key, switch between white and black, if you see it over here, and then I can I'll bring this down just a little bit more, and down to 6 pixels, and then I can go and say, okay, you know, here's where I want this. And just roughly and quickly start drawing in lines of where. Now I might have to turn it to see if I missed anything here and go in there, but it's a lot easier to do if this is smoother. And then sometimes you can move it back or let it be, or sculpt it back the way it needs to be later. But basically you just want to get the polygon information in. So this would have been easier if I did this. And I'll take the time and do this right, and because it on the front, I'll take the time on the front end because on the back end, it'll be a lot easier when I start to actually make the topology. So it becomes very clear once I do that, and then there's like hardly no guesswork to it. And so it's just like chalkboard. And matter of fact, I've talked to people on my Facebook and I mentioned that, this alone could be a business if you're like, hey, if you got a big retopology model that needs to be retop for animation, or sculpt, you could send it to somebody who understands how to retop and what areas like are important. Like this has to be a loop here. This is obvious a trouble spot, so you gotta run this around and make that work. And to make this work, you got to put the edge here, even though it's shabby. You got to put the edge there and put the edge there, and can really work with it and give you a nice topology. Okay, so once all those squares are nice, and then also like you can design it like here. This definitely should be an edge around here that loops under the breast and over to the collar and the lapel. This is a main landmark here. This is a definite main landmark around there. And also if I put it there for the UV maps, it's going to be good. Also if I have to, I'll use different colors for different things. Let's say, okay, well this is going to be a main one, so I'll say that's a main one. This is a main one. This is a main loop. And these are the marks of the main loops that I want to keep, And let's say this one, I might even say this is a necessary loop and this is a necessary loop. And then let's say if I want to go back on the modeler and put those in later, let's say this is a necessary loop. It's easier to get, and that's a necessary loop. Okay, so there's different ways. Like if I was doing the face, it's like, okay, this is a tertiary loop, this is a main loop, this is a main loop, secondary, and tertiary loop. Okay, so those are different things that are a concern for that. And one thing, once I also make the loop, I also want to keep in mind that I want to keep 4 squares every time, or quads every time I make these loops. And again, doing this on the front end is a lot better than doing it on the back end. I mean, some people are good at it and they do it all the time. Whoopee for them. But for me, it just works better for me if I could just do it and know that I know, and so know what I'm doing. Know that I know what I'm doing. So even when I draw the loops, I try to keep the square attitude in mind. So I do the loops and then I go back and clean it up, and I switch in between white by hitting the V key and then cleaning up any area that just, after a while it gets messy, and I just clean it and make it block out even more, to really, like let's say that's a loop, but it's just not really blocked. So I'll go in there and clean it up and make it block out, and then strengthen it. So I'll go here and hit B and then turn that to black. So I'll do whatever it needs. Like here, like in the rest of the arm, it's pretty obvious, but this area was real tricky. So I make sure that I get these, like this I'll quickly do, but this where I need to significantly tell specifically where things are, I'll make sure that I get it very concise, very clean edges, and or painting grid, so I can see it. Now you don't want to do too many. You want, I did with this because I had this extra threading here from these hoops around the shoulders, but this is actually probably too thick. There's too many edges. Like I would have put in, like, this would have been a square. Open this a little wider since I'm taking these out. So, some of these I would have kept and some of these I wouldn't have. It doesn't have to be that, like this. I would have had to have kept that one, so I'll take this out. Also, when you're drawing, make sure you take take the Z depth off. So that's one of the things. I usually make some mistakes. There's a couple of mistakes that I usually make, and that's one. So not putting that symmetry on and keep taking the Z depth off when I draw is like really important. So it should only be RGB. So you can do that here, just RGB. Take off the Z add or Z sub. Okay, so those are areas. This was a main concern, this one here, and even if I had put in more, and I still could put in more, but because I subdivide the model, and I know it's not going to be, I know it's not a stretch polygon, so it's okay. So this is a main loop that I need to keep here, so I'm going to keep that one, but right next to this could have came out. Some of these I could keep, and some of them, and usually when I take it in the modeler, I'll decide which ones I don't need. You can really fancy this up and really finesse it to the point where, you really have a very beautiful, strong grid of surface and have the topology to a level that is just really, really works for you. It works for your model and brings the most out of your model. So some people do this all the time, so they're used to doing it. This is really still a very thick grid or thick topology. The mesh topology, and the quads. And again, you see how square I keep it. So what about the red dots? Okay, the red dots are actually meant to be points that I use, that I know for certain they have two purposes. Like with this, again, this area being so confusing, and it really is confusing. Okay, now there's probably a better way I could have done it. It's very much like the Cupidron. I did the Cupidron a completely different way. I would have liked to have done the Cupidron this way, but I would have, there's different ways. As you model, you just have different approaches. But one thing that was very clear, once you get in here, it's almost impossible to keep up and to know. And so sometimes I'll make an edge here when I first made the black lines, but then they would loop across to the other one, and it would actually turn out to be a spiral. So it would loop around, like one of these would break and cross the track, one of the lines, the edges. And so when I came back, and this is the first time I used the red dots in a way that it was purposeful in this way, I used the red dots to go around each edge and to make 100% sure that when I got to the other side, the red dot lined up with the same edge. So when it didn't work, this stuff right here. I hope it don't crash. All right, I crashed. All right, so that's an electric image. All right, I crashed. So I'll load it back up because I wanna continue. So I just explained that out, and that'll be another movie to explain exactly what it is I did. Now, let me just say this while I'm loading this up. Whenever I go here, like, I don't know how to configure this so that I want my brushes on top here, and so when I pull that over there, and I also want this to be double the side, double, like when I go in the document, I like to have it double so it fills the screen. Okay, so I'm gonna load, and I like for this not to be here, but for it to be above the tools. So anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and load this up, and we'll get started again. I'll probably stop this movie, but let me just hit this real quick. All right, here it is. Here it is again. All right, so now I'm just gonna go straight to the topology. So that was one way I used the red dots. Okay, that was really important too, because that helped me a great deal. You gotta hit, even if I don't hit that, if I move this and don't hit the edit, it will not affect that. It's just like I take it out and pull it directly on the canvas, nothing happens. So So I explained all of that. Did I? No, I did an intro movie and I don't think I posted it. So again, all right. So how do I avoid it from crashing? And it's going to be also a part for my next putting this up. So what I do is this here. I'll reduce that a little. So since I'm only working with this section, I just go and go like that. Just hold the Control Shift and all the rest of the geometry I won't need. So it cuts that off. As a matter of fact, I'll even if you hold it down, hold the Command Shift, and then release the Shift, it'll X that. So Shift usually mean add. And so it'll load some of this out of memory. And like I say, I don't think the Mac version is 64-bit. So it's fighting. And I bet you that point where I put the 26, I think that's why the 256, I think that's also why it compresses, takes so long to compress. So this looks like it's stalled, but anyway, that's a lot of geometry anyhow. Okay, so that was one reason why the red dots are so important. Plus, the red dots tell me exactly where to click. There's no ifs, ands, and buts, and as long as I have that red dot, I know I have 1, 2, 3, 4, and so I'll count it, and then I know each edge is going around and aren't skipping tracks, you know, jumping lanes or anything. And then I know exactly where to click when I retopolize. Okay, let's get on to that. Okay, so here we go, the retop. So this is it, and I want to show you because this is so quick and it's so easy. And I'm not going to go heavy into it, but all you do, the first thing you need to do is not have this up. You need to go to the right tool, and that would be the Z-sphere. And so you can take the Z-sphere, and sometimes I'll make a mistake and not use the Z-sphere. And I'll have that out first, and then I'll add the Z-sphere, and that's the wrong way to do it. So once you have the Z-sphere, then you go down here, and the Z-sphere has to be in edit and activate it and everything. And what you do is you get a rigging, and you just say select mesh, and then you go to that mesh, which I cleaned out. I section off a section just because so I can only deal with that, and then that'll bounce there. And then what you can do is hit scale and then scale down so you can see that better. Okay, and then go back to draw. And you see this, whenever you're in draw mode, you see a little red dot. So the first time you click, anywhere you click, it'll draw a line from that red dot to wherever you are because it's activated. So this will happen. Oops, didn't do anything. Anyway. Doesn't matter. So what you want to do is get your pointer down and then start oh, I'm sorry. After you do this, and see, because I don't retop all the time, I make a mistake sometimes. So after you hit that, here's another thing. These three buttons are what's going to be there. So you have to hit edit topology. So you might as well go and open adaptive skin, rigging, topology, and projection, because these are the tools that are going to have everything to do with it. Now once you hit add the rigging and it binds the mesh, don't hit that now. Just once you hit it already, then you hit edit, and then you get the red dot. So anywhere you click, now you see the red dot on the cursor. Anywhere you click is going to go from there to there. So you don't want to do that. You want to click outside and it'll make that dot white. Then when you click on, and this is another thing I always forget to do, is have my X symmetry on. So you want to keep your X symmetry on too, so it can draw both sides at the same time, given that they are symmetrical. And then you go ahead and click, and it starts one little dot. Now I started there, but normally I'll go to the red dot. So on this particular character, what you'll see is it makes a red dot, and that lets you know where the next dot is going to be drawn from. So I'm just making the first dot there, and so it's telling me the next dot is going to be there, here. So I can start going around and just clicking in, and you can see now that I got my grid, I can just work. Nothing but clockwork. And so, and it tells you where the next one, you can see the activation, nothing to it but to do it. And so it just breaks down, no guessing, no thinking about anything else. So you literally separated the more, so I wasn't paying attention. I went across the beam. I can do, go back, Command Z, go back and feed right into it. And there's the activated one. And I can just keep going around. You see how now that I hid the rest of the object, it's easy to go and get it. So I'm going all the way around that track, and I hit on the next one, and you see that it's activated. It doesn't really give me a place to go to finish that off. I can click off there, deactivate it, and click back into it. And so there it is. So there's the first ring for the retopology, okay? And so I'm going to show you, I hit the shift so it can snap into place. So what you want to do now, you can hit just the A button, A, and there's the retopology. There's a new surface. And what you see is that surface has, if you hit the frame here, you see two loops when we only drew one. That's because this density and the skinning is up there. So you can take it down, and now it's only one. So I'm going to take this off. And so also, so once you start to do that, you can start to go, you can see it activated there. Now I'm going to start using my red dots. Now you notice my dot is the same as my red dot. So it's even better marker to help me because I can see directly. So I'm going to go across the grain into here, into the complex geometry and topology and the highs and the lows. And you can see I didn't put a red dot on this one because I wasn't sure if I wanted it or not. And then also when I do the projection, it's going to make certain ones. So when I reskin it, so I'm going straight across here fearlessly because I know exactly where I'm going with this. And I see all my dots, have nothing to be concerned about or nothing to fear. And it's very easy and it's very simple and it's like clockwork and it's boring. And so it's just technically boring and you just don't want to do it. I have to turn it and alter to make sure, but I know, oops, but you still got to pay attention, and I know that it's working, and I'll start right there, bam. Okay, so again, I can hit Command A or hit the preview on here, that's preview, adapt to scan, and you can see, now there's a little bit, that might be who knows what, let's see. Oh, you know what? It's not connected. So let me click off. Somehow I missed that talking crap. And bam. And so I'll preview or hit A again. You can see it's worked. So it's a very flexible system. So now I can go through this whole character, even underneath here. The easy parts, the hard parts is all pretty much straightforward. Well, so I'm not going to continue to do that, and I already did this model, so I'm just basically showing you. But so here's another thing. Also, what you can do is hit projection, and projection will give it a strength for it to project that surface. So projection works. It'll actually conform that surface to the new surface. So projection works best when, and it also projects the poly paint color. But so let me go up here, poly paint, and turn it off. So it'll always come up. I don't know a way to just get rid of it one time and for all, but that'll come up. But you won't see it projecting on the surface unless you up the density. So even 2 or 3, then you'll see the projection. You have to keep hitting that off, but you can see now how it starts to wrap and form itself. Now here you get some wacky ones because it's probably, my model is probably not really symmetrical. And so there's some really funky parts about that. And I wouldn't even care because I could just do half and then shoot it over to Maya, bring it back over, and then project it, reproject it, make it a subtool, and project all. That's a different technique of doing this. So that's in projection modes. But if I was really concerned, I can lower the range, or up the range or lower the range here of the projection. So it starts from 0 to a really wonky number. But I'll just make it like that, and I can up the strength maybe. I forgot which one is which, but I usually just get it. And I hit A, and you can see it's a little bit better. And you know, and sometimes it's not going to be perfect, but you know what? It wouldn't take, so I'll take the colorize. So even still, after it's done, I could just smooth that out. It wouldn't matter. You know, I could just rough that out. So it's not going to matter. So I'm sorry I don't have another one. Actually, I do have the original jacket that I used to project. Let me see. Let me go here. Jacket, topology. Side. It's a paint, three tops. Let me see. New jacket, Taylor, probably one of these. So that's the jacket after I made it and I did all those things that I spoke of. And actually, I forgot to do one side of it. So I forgot the X symmetry, and like I told you, you know, so I forgot it. I just had it so it only work on one side. And so I forgot to do it. And so I just took it in Maya, duplicated the side, brought it back in. And when I brought it back in, I just made it a subtool of this model. So this is off because I changed it. So don't ignore that. And so, so then I brought it back in, pinned as a subtool here. And then I just hit this button, project all. And when you hit project all, and the ones you have visible, so I had the body visible, and you select the object you want to project. So the jacket is what I want to project, and it'll project on what's visible, which is the body. And just hit project all, and you have different settings there. And then it made it like the old jacket. And then I switched it back, the model. So I used the old model, and then I switched it and put it back on this one. So you have to have something underneath it, and so it's got to be the previous model that had the form. So then I went back and appended this to the one. So I had to use this model, is what I'm saying. I had to project it to this model, and so I had to go here, append, and then project all, and project it to this model. Now I've already remeshed it and reformed it and sculpted, so I made some of the areas like here bigger underneath the breast. I rounded that out, and some areas here, now that I had the new geometry. But you can see if I went and subdivided this, I went to the lower geometry settings. Oops, I'm doing it on the wrong one. I'm doing it on the jacket. On the original jacket. I should be doing it on the red one. And so it's got loaded into memory. Hopefully, like I say, my memory settings probably aren't right anyway. But, okay. So if you can see here, and I lower this jacket, you can see it probably matches up directly with the same edge loops. If I hit transparency and hit frame, you'll probably see that the edge loops line up with the polylines here. I did some editing, but pretty much that's how, and I go and I tweak it. I'll take it in Maya and reproject it. It's so flexible now, it kind of blows me away. It's like, so you can see that main edge loop here. You see all the edge loops underneath the arm. And another thing I'll do, and this will be the last tip, is like I'll switch the colors of stuff so I can make it more visible. So visibility is very important. visibility is very important. So you can see how the edge loops. Now if I wanted to, I'd move these around, move the edges, move the loops and stuff like that. To make it project off. Sometimes you can do that. That'll help. Oops. So I'll move the edges to where it can be more useful. But it's very simple once you get used to it. You do it a couple of times. The only thing is you're not, you don't retop everything you sculpt, and you don't retop all the time. So it's hard to remember sometimes. So I could have gone in here like here and made some of this stuff fit a little bit more, so when I project it, it's already where it needs to be. You know. But it was all good. It worked out fine. And so it's just, you're just remaking the topology. So I'll go and after it's like this, then I'll go and once I subdivide it, I'll just paint it up and make it good, make it the way I really want it. And so it's beautiful. You have all these different ways of handling this geometry, and it's really great. It works. And it's simple, and it doesn't really take long. Some models, like a face, is usually the same type of topology, so it usually takes no time flat. And then you certainly have certain trouble areas, like I usually have problems with the opening of the mouths or eyes. I could probably do that better. But for the most part, it's very flexible, very easy to do, and a very good system. And so enjoy. Hope this helped. Like I said, I share this information because it's just information I got elsewhere, or I studied some. So I don't mind helping out. One day I might do a full character DVD and add all this kind of stuff. But right now I'm just trying to build my characters. I still have a lot to learn myself. So anyway, and feel free to share techniques with me. So enjoy. God bless.